Osaka, comparatively, so compared to the rest of Japan, is very dirty. And don't get me wrong, Japan is a very, very clean place. And when I would go and visit my grandparents in Tokyo, I was always just so amazed at how clean it was. There were so many people everywhere, but everything was just so sparkling clean. And I don't want to say that Osaka is filthy and it's not third world by any means, but comparatively, it's a lot more dirty, a lot more cramped, not as well organized as Tokyo or even some of the other big cities in Japan. Um, it's it's very hot in the summers and gets cold in the winters. It's kind of generally how Japan is. Um, the area I served in had extremely narrow streets. It was not the city center of Osaka. It was a little bit about 20 minutes on the outside. It was still technically Osaka, but it was called Ibaraki. Um, so a lot of people commuted from there into the hub of the city. We would ride our bikes to some of the train stations to go street contacting. It would take about 15 minutes there were two big ones, like in either direction from our apartment, and it would take about 15 minutes to either one. But to get there, it was just these extremely narrow streets. I remember when I first got there, I thought I was going to get hit by a car every day. Um, I feel like Osaka just has a really unique smell to it. It's not unbearable. It's kind of this like musty dust, like dusty smell, but there's also, at the same time, Osaka, I think, has some of the best and heartiest food in Japan. Lots of heavy fried things. Um, yeah, it's just kind of it's really like, if you can imagine what you think Tokyo and clean urban Japan is like, and it's like the dirty South version of that. Very crowded. A lot of older people, I would say, more so than Tokyo. Yeah, it's just a really interesting city. And people are just very. They're a lot more personable. They're they'll talk about the weather, they'll talk about their family, they'll talk about what food they like. They'll be very fascinated that if you're from another country. Osaka is the second biggest city in Japan after Tokyo. I'm sure, I know that there are several major businesses based out there. I don't think I could name any off the top of my head, but I think there's about 8 million people that live in the city. It could be more than that. As far as housing goes, it's mostly small. There's suburbs. But even in suburbs of big cities, houses are just, compared to the US, just very close together. You can probably reach out the window and touch your next door neighbor's house. Lots of apartments. We lived in an apartment it was kind of older, but it was actually one of the more spacious apartments I had on my mission. I think that was just chance and luck, honestly. There's a lot of older buildings in Osaka. Like, we would knock on a lot of apartments that I sometimes feel like, how is this still standing? Sometimes, surprisingly enough, or even just houses that had just like a metal sheet on top of it for a roof. And I think that kind of goes back to how people have just lived there their whole lives, and it's not that they don't have the resources to change it. It's just, why would they change it if it's sufficient, you know?